Hey, everybody. Happy to see you today. All right. My name is Tiffany Wickes. I am a nutrition and fitness coach primarily for the busy mom who doesn't have time to get fit and eat healthy. I'm here to teach you how to do that. As a busy mom of 7 and a pilot wife, I am all too familiar with what a busy life looks like and a spouse that's not here very often. So today I am sharing the stage with another fellow coach who has a different perspective, same mission, with an alternate demographic. So take it away, Kim.
Yeah, I'm Kimberly McDonough. And like Tiffany said, I'm another coach. And my demographic's a little bit different in the fact I speak a lot to women that are empty nesters and navigating into midlife. So, end of perimenopause, menopause, postmenopausal. And most of them are women that have been around the block a few times and have tried everything regarding dieting, right? And so they're frustrated and very skeptical. So it's very interesting to reteach and retrain those types of things. So that's the demographic that I work with there. I am married. I have 3 adulting children, just had our 7th grandchild, and life stays busy even after the kids leave the house. So
All right. So you heard it here. It doesn't end
it
just
does
because your
not
little
end.
ones grow
You
up.
never stop being a mom.
I love it. I think that's how it's supposed to go, actually. I think you're supposed to have a whole house full of kids and then you raise them up and then right behind them come the grandkids. So I'm here
Exactly.
for it.
Then you
I'm
just
looking
have to
forward to it.
reframe how you guide and mentor.
That's right. All right, my friends, today, here's what we're going to talk about. This is going to be a subject that you likely have never heard spoken about in a professional capacity, but we're going to talk about reverse dieting. Okay. We are very much like anti diet culture over here, but that is the correct terminology is reverse dieting. So we're going to go through and first off share our personal stories on what under eating and under fueling did to us and did not do for us, and we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamics of what exactly is reverse dieting and how it can work. And then we're going to address some particular demographics that Kim and I both specialize in. We're going to talk about the hows and whys, and who we work with and how it all works. That way, we're not going to hold anything back. We're going to give you the keys to the kingdom. We're going to teach you how to track slash not track during the holidays and every other part of your life when you've tried doing the I'm going to eat 800 calories and fast for 19 hours a day. And when that doesn't work, it might be time to switch gears. So I will begin. My story of under eating and under fueling starts actually when it became incredibly aware that I was doing something very wrong to my body, would have been about 4.5 years ago when I miscarried the baby that I had right before we got pregnant with Helen. So to back it up a little bit, I could definitely detect an eating disorder back in my 20s. I wasn't aware that I had an eating disorder at the time, but I knew that satiety seemed to forsake me all the time. I was just hungry constantly, and I didn't know how to fuel my body, so I would just eat everything. Well, imagine what happens when you're eating everything and your body primarily will crave carbohydrates, right? I started to balloon up and get a little chubby. So at that point, I was working at restaurants, and I said, well, I don't want to be chubby, so that must mean I have to work out a lot harder, right? So I was working out like crazy, eating like crazy. It was like a binge purge system, until a girl came along and said, hey, I have these diet pills. Would you like to take them? They really work. And I was like, sure, I'll take some diet pills. I did start taking the diet pills. And yes, I absolutely dropped pounds real fast, but I was going a million miles a minute. Well, after a couple of months, when I was given a hefty tip at a restaurant that I worked at, I thought, that's a little much for a burger. This guy said, here, you need to go buy yourself a burrito. I was like, oh, so slightly offended. I thought, what does that mean? He said, girl, you are way too skinny. I said, way too skinny? I was way too fat 2 months ago. So I asked this girl, I said, what is it that you gave me? Like, what are these pills? No, I did not think to ask in my early 20s what they were. It was speed. So her mother was a narcoleptic and got these pills that kept her awake during the day and gave her energy. Well, for a typical person who is not a narcoleptic, that ended up going a million miles a minute, constantly moving my body. I was working it at the gym, but I was also not eating. So that was the start of my dysfunction. You can fast forward that almost 20 years. The stress of being a wife and a mother, primarily on my own, I started working out like a mad person. I was over caffeinating, under eating, working too much, and not sleeping enough. You combine those four, what you get is massive gut dysfunction. And my body just started shutting down. And it shut down so much to the point with added, family stressors, I ended up losing our unborn baby. And I remember sitting in the bottom of my shower, crying my eyes out as the blood and the parts of my baby flowed out of my body and down a drain, and my husband just sitting outside of the shower waiting for me to pull it together. That was the moment I said, I've got to do something different. I've got to change the way I'm doing this. And
Mhm.
that's when I started finding a new way. I found a better way. And that's when I found the faster way.
Yeah. My story is not that different in the fact that, yes, I come from disordered eating as well. Started earlier in life. I was a preteen, probably, and really reared its ugly head in high school, which is not an uncommon time for young women, right? But this was also in the 80s when skinny was the rage, right? And eat less, work out more was really all you heard. The diet industry was huge, just really ramping up. Diet foods, artificial sweeteners, low fat, because fat was terrible, right? That's what we were told. And, lasted really through a big chunk of college. But at the same time, I knew it was disordered and chose to go into a field to kind of not only heal myself, but also to be able to help others. So I have a degree in dietetics, so food and nutrition is my background. I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in a nursing home running the food service industry there. And it was up until I had kids, became pregnant, that I started to understand a little bit more about how my body should be. Now, fast forward probably at least 20 years later, um, and realizing the side effects of that disordered eating, whether it's in your skin, your hair, your nails, like the things that bounced back, but really were going to have some lasting impact. And as I still struggled right into perimenopause with the whole eat less, work out more, I was working out 4 or 5 days a week at one of the local, gym hotspots. Right, a lot of cardio. We were lifting some, but not that much. I come from a history of shoulder injury, so hesitant to do some of the upper body work, just having had 3 surgeries on it. Um, so knew that things were not working right because the weight wasn't changing, and yet I'm pushing myself like crazy in the gym. I was not sleeping well. I was trying to cut calories back still. So I was probably not even eating 1,200 calories, if that, on most days. So I went ahead and had my cortisol tested and spoke with my physician, who has been a client of mine. I owned a Pilates studio before then, and she had been a client. So we had a conversation, and she knew better than to tell me eat less and work out more. It wasn't working. And so she suggested I have my cortisol tested. It was crazy. The company that tested cortisol was like, "What are you doing in the afternoons? Right? What are you doing?"
Wow.
So I decided to turn. I did a little research, turned away from the excess cardio, and said, "Look, I'm going to start lifting." I went to a gym. That's all we do is lift, and it made a difference. But it wasn't until I really dug into the nutritional component that my work in the gym made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't fueling myself correctly to even just lift in the gym, no cardio, really. I had taken cardio out for about 3 months, other than walking. And until I learned to really fuel what my body needed, um, that's when I saw the biggest changes. And the other thing it has taught me over the course of a year or so is that for someone with disordered eating, having a plan and having a goal that actually work, like a plan that works you toward your goal, is so satisfying and is so life changing. I can't describe that. So that's kind of my history of how I got into coaching with what I'm doing, is to be able to give that to others as well.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people with disordered eating or eating disorders in general, although that's not what this is about,
No,
I think
no,
you have to touch on it since both of us
yeah,
have that experience.
right.
Is it's more of a I'm going to use the word mental disorder, but it's more
Mhm.
mental than anything. And when you said when
It
they have a
is.
plan, when you give somebody a plan, it gives them control. And
Yes,
with most
exactly.
disordered eating situations, that's what they want, is they want some deal of control over what's going on. So
Right.
numbers can be in their favor, right?
No,
When you start
hugely.
looking at macros and like, here's the goal, here's what I want you to get. Like they've got to have a place to go. And for me, myself, that's what I have found I've been most successful with. And I've heard women, well, I don't want to be restricted in, in the macro numbers. I was like, actually, it's very freeing to be like,
Very
okay,
free.
here's my goal. Because if I don't have a goal that I'm working toward, I will undereat and overwork every single day of the week.
Yes.
And that is how I ended up shutting my entire body down. I had to take months off of working out altogether. I had to get gut testing. I was positive and reacting in an inflammatory way and even
Mhm.
slight allergic ways to foods you would never expect, like pineapple and broccoli.
Right.
And I mean, my body was just freaking out. It was reacting to the proteins in every single food I was eating practically. So I had to take a large step back, like 18 steps back, in order to start
Right.
slowly stepping forward. And now
Right.
that I have found a sustainable way of doing life with eating and nutrition and living and just being more joyful about this mission to help myself and help others, it's really changed the game.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it is.
what we're going to talk about is not being restrictive, not reducing your calories, but actually increasing them in a systematic way. All right. So the content today we're going to talk about is reverse dieting, which, everyone knows a diet means cut back, work more. We're actually going to talk about adding more food and working out a little bit less. So here is basically what we're talking about. Here's how you would do it, right? First off, you need to know how much you're eating, okay? And we're not asking you to guess at it. You would have to track it. So there's lots of apps that track. Our program has a tracking capability built in there, has lots of foods in the database you can choose from, but you can pick any sort of macro tracking and you just don't change anything with your food at all. Just for a
Right.
solid week, maybe even two, just track everything you eat and drink, because that Dutch Brothers latte that I just got with my daughter this afternoon, that was 250 calories, right?
Oh,
And I don't care because I owned that. I was like, I'm
yep.
going to get this because we're having a girls' day, and I'm always for memories over macros. But
Yep.
it's not over it. I've just factored it into my day. Okay,
Right.
I'm going to account for that 250 calories. So moving ahead, what we need to know is how much are you eating now? So if you're, I mean, it honestly doesn't even matter how much. Most people, most women specifically, are not eating 3,000 calories a day. So
Right.
Kim, what have you seen with your clients that you coach regarding how much they are actually eating?
More than 95% of them come into my program under eating and under eating
Mhm.
pretty significantly. So somewhere between that 1,000 and 1,200 calories. And they come and say, I can't even lose weight at those levels. And, getting them to be patient enough to slowly
Mhm.
start increasing their intake. I don't ask them to eat 1,800 calories the next day, right?
Right.
We slowly step through that. And and they all of a sudden now are eating 800 calories after the 6 weeks, or 1,800, excuse me, after the 6 weeks or so, and can't believe it, really just can't
Hmm.
believe it. So the history of under eating, and again, my demographic primarily, and I'm sure this is normal with a lot of women, but I even find it in men. don't
Hmm.
don't misunderstand that. um,
Hmm.
that they just, yeah, the diet industry has messed us with that. I'll just leave it at that.
It really has. And when you're a mom running around after little kids all day, here's what I have found is most of us moms are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't eat lunch today." And then they'll just grab whatever's left
Yeah,
off of their toddler's plate because A, food's expensive. Like we're not wasting any of it. So then they'll
right,
just take nibbles and bites and licks off of stuff all throughout the day. And that
yeah,
can either lead you to under eating, or it can lead you to be way over on a particular macro, usually fat. Um, Way over on that. And this
yeah,
is probably going to shock some people, but if you're going to, tend towards having a higher macro than the other, when you're lifting weights, I would actually prefer that to be carbohydrates
right,
than
right.
it would be fat calories.
Hmm.
So Step one is you need to know how much you're actually eating,
Right.
between your caloric and then how that breaks down into the individual macros, more specifically protein, fats, carbohydrates. And then the fourth one, Kim, why don't you tell us the value of knowing how much fiber you're eating and why you need to increase your fiber? Like
Right.
25 should be minimum,
Right.
minimum, 25
So if you're
grams
choosing
minimum.
a tracking app, whatever it is, right, from Lose It to MyFitnessPal, whatever it is, or the track, the app that we use, um, make sure that it has a capability of taking a look at your fiber. That is key. So as we age, right, well, all the time, we all know fiber is going to be beneficial for our digestive system, right? It slows our absorption of different nutrients. Slows our absorption of carbohydrates. Not that our body doesn't absorb them, but it slows it down so we don't get those peaks and valleys after some of the foods that we're eating. So it's also going to help with just gut mobility. The bacteria that are in our gut, some of them are going to feed off of some of that fiber. So that is all just a win-win situation. So we look at eating 25 grams plus of fiber per day, it's key. And it can be found in so many different places, right? From your fruits, it can be found in some of your high fiber carbohydrates that are out there, from sweet potatoes, some other things. But it is going to be key. It's going to be key. And also your estrogen, testosterone, all of your hormones also get semi regulated by the fiber as well, right? It plays a role in those regulation things there. So,
Right. So you got to make sure that, although fiber necessarily doesn't have a caloric value attached to it, it has a functional value attached to it, which
right,
is why we're mentioning it. So it's kind of like the fourth macronutrient that people just
right.
don't talk enough about. So you do need to be tracking your fiber, because
Yep,
100 grams of fiber from potato chips versus 100 grams or 100 calories from potato chips and 100 calories from black beans is not
right,
going to give you the same impact on your blood sugar and your, metabolism regulation and satiety. It's not going to have the same effect.
right.
So that is important. So those four, you're going to need to know what those are. Once you know that, then you figure out, okay, that is what's called a baseline. So you're going to work from that number. So let's just give a hypothetical number, say 1500, right? 1500, if you're working in a deficit intentionally after you have muscle, that can be sustained, then that's not necessarily. So I just want to point out that the numbers 1200, 1300, 1400, they are neither good nor bad just all by
Right,
themselves. Like, we can't
right,
assign that's a bad number because we have no idea what your lifestyle looks like. Your
right,
lifestyle, your activity level, what season of life you're in, whether you're postmenopausal, perimenopausal, whether you're a mother, whether you're working one job, two jobs, playing a sport, lifting
right.
weights, doing the boot camp. This is why
Sleep,
coaching is so value. Sleep, yeah, I
sleep's
mean,
all part of that as well, right?
this is why coaching is so valuable, because you get to dig into that with your coach and say, okay, 1500, what does that look like for me? Like, I know for me, as a breastfeeding woman in my mid 40s who's very active, 1500 for me is not great to be in when I'm trying to build muscle. Like, it
Right,
was impossible. And I know that
right.
firsthand experience because I'm doing it. I've increased my calories in a build cycle, and turns out I actually need to go higher than what I just did. So at the beginning of November, I increased my calories by almost 1,000. So I am up around 2,300 calories in a day, and that's broken down into different metrics per macro, right? So I'm not going to give those values because I know somebody's going to take this and be like, okay, copy paste my life. You can't do that. You can't
No,
take my macros for
right,
Tiffany Wicks and then apply it to your life, because we're different people. It
right,
may end up being similar, but again, we're just going to give you the keys to the kingdom here. And if you need coaching, then you've got two fantastic coaches right here. And if you want to go on your own, like, we'll give you all the information to go on your own. But it's
right,
important to know that this is probably an option for you. If, like Kim said, you've done everything and you're not getting results, this might be exactly what gets you the results you want. So figure out where you're at. Now let's figure out what your goals are. Okay.
right.
So, Kim, what do most people in your demographic look like in terms of their goals? What do they want?
Their goals are weight loss or fat loss.
Okay. And
A 100%.
mine mostly is that they want to build muscle for
Right,
sustainability. So our caloric values are going to look different when you are
right,
just looking for, hey, I just want to lose these, fluffy menopause pounds versus, hey, I want to actively build bigger muscles so that I can throw that toddler up in the air, or I can get my butt up off the floor when playing
right.
trains with my kiddo.
Right. Well, and that's where it comes in. The educational component comes in is getting yourself to understand, even in the course of this conversation, is, and what we're going to ask you or recommend you do for these holiday season or this upcoming refueling season is, think about the fact that adding muscle to your body is only going to increase your metabolism, right? It's not going to
Mhm.
decrease your metabolism. So it's only
Exactly.
going to increase it. So getting that demographic that we just spoke of that wants to lose weight and wants to lose body fat, get them to understand that, okay, let's build muscle because that's going to give us the results of the other two,
Exactly.
right?
So muscle is an incredibly expensive tissue. Expensive in the terms of calories, right?
What
So
it needs.
think about your bank account, okay? If you have $100 in your bank account and you have $200 in your savings. All right. So your savings is going to be your muscle and your bank account is going to be everything else. If you have overspent in your main bank account, well, what do you think the bank is going to do? It's going to look for wherever you have some extra, right?
Yep.
And but guess what? The first place it's looking is not stored body fat. It's
No,
actually going to
save
start
us
eating
tomorrow.
away at lean muscle tissue first
Yep.
because it can get those glycogen stores emptied faster than it can start burning down their stored body fat. So your stored body fat is like your safety net in the case that there are no more deer out in the woods to hunt. I mean, you've got to think of your body as this prehistoric creature that still thinks in terms of tribes and spears and running through the forest half naked. It doesn't know that there's a McDonald's on every other street corner. It
Right.
doesn't know that. It doesn't know that we live in America, God bless, right? That we have an overabundance of food available to us.
Right.
Nutrient density is a different conversation, but your
Right.
body doesn't know that. So it will start eating away at that lean muscle tissue unless you have already taught your body that this is a tissue that we use often. Okay. It knows your heart is used often, so it's not going to chew apart that. It knows
Right.
your lungs are being used because those are all autonomic body functions they're going. You don't even have to think about them. So your body's like, I need calories for the heart. I need calories for the brain. I need calories for your lungs, for your kidneys, for your liver. So think about all of the body systems that do their job without you ever having to ask them to do it. Your body is going to take its savings account and start moving it over into other little budgets that say
Yep.
liver, check, kidney, check, all the other systems, check, 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 check. And then it's going to say, okay, where else can I cut from? Because this person needs more.
Mhm.
Oh, muscle. Yeah, we'll start getting that.
Right.
Unless
Right.
you
So,
teach it that it can't. We need
right.
that muscle.
Chronically underfueling, you cannot build muscle. I speak from experience.
Yep.
So could never put muscle on. I always assumed it was just my physique, right? But
Right.
no, that
Oh,
is not true. I was not fueling enough.
I have heard people say that time and time again. Oh, I'm just not a person that builds muscle. No, you're just not a person that's eating enough to build muscle. I promise you,
Right.
you have to eat more. So here's what we're going to do is you're going to find out how much are you eating. All right. Well, are you willing to get into the gym and start lifting heavy weights?
Right.
Kim, are we talking about bicep curls at 10 pounds for the rest of your
No.
life?
No, no,
Mm-mm,
we are not. We're
no.
looking at picking up some heavy weights, looking at, and looking at yes, everybody has a different fitness level they're coming in. So it's going to look different for everyone, but challenging yourself. So the first few days, maybe you're picking up some lighter weights. Well, if you can actually finish those reps, right? When you're getting to that 8 to 10 rep and you could keep going, we need to go heavier.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We need to go heavier. So start stepping it up. And it may only be a step in a small amount, a 2.5 to 5, maybe 10 pounds for legs. Small amounts, small increments, but start building that up so that you cannot finish those last couple reps, right? You are done. I'd rather have you, tap out at 8 than be
Yep.
able to go to 16, right?
Yep. I agree. I agree. So you can, range we're going to get off track. I was like, "Oh, you know what? You could do like improvise with we're not going to talk about that." I swear this could be a 5-hour long conversation.
Yeah, we could keep
So,
going.
what we want you to do is step up those calories. Now, how many calories? That is where it gets a little bit tricky if you're doing this on your own, is how far you step that up. Typically, we don't watch the scale in our program. We teach
Right,
people about non-scale victories, and we want you to dictate how well you're doing
right,
based off how you feel, how your clothes look, how you look naked to yourself. Because it's a bonus if your husband likes it, but I need you to love how you look naked, not just
right,
him.
right. And your hunger and your sleep, right?
Yes. Yes.
Two others, right? Hmm. Yes. More strength. Right. Until you have the fuel to do it. You can't, your car can't give you maximum performance until you have the fuel in the tank. You can't get maximum performance with an empty tank. Right. Yep. Right. Right. So once we have that into what you're intuitively eating, what are you eating naturally, right? Once we have that data, then I recommend a 5 to 10% increase. And it could just be, it could be for a week, it could be for a half a week. Let's take a look. 5 to 10% increase across the board, right? Um, Work out, see what's happening. Did you put on weight? Did you, are you sleeping? The whole gamut. And then take it in those same increments as you're going. If weight does not change, yet you have increased 5 to 10%, I then recommend you step it up another 5 to 10%, right? Keep going up. That way it gives you a small increment. You don't feel like all of a sudden one day you're eating everything you can get your hands on, right? You're taking it in a methodical step. So that way when you do hit that number, that things really do start to change, then you start to be able to pick where that threshold is in there at once. Yeah. Yeah. You would not be happy. Yeah. So small 5 to 10% increments. Yeah. Right. Hmm. Right. Hmm. Right. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Right. Hmm. Right. No. The caveat with that, though, is again, working with my demographic, they take that as a license to go back to under eating. Okay. Because then in that, between let's say 1:30 and 7, they're not getting this additional, well, their calories in, including the additional 5 to 10%, right? So a lot in my demographic, we shorten that window. We go at least 12 hours, if not 14, and then be purposeful about getting those calories in over that time, because that is more important, really. Fueling your body overall is going to be more important than whether you went 12 or 14 hours in between. You know? So, right. No, right. Yep. Right. So on that really quick, Tiffany, make sure that the app that you're choosing does that for you. I know a few of them you have to pay for the premium to get the macros. So take a look at the different before you go all in and start tracking everything. Make sure that it will give you the breakdown of how much protein, what percentage of what you ate was protein, carbohydrates, fat, and fiber. Cardio, way less cardio. Right. Good. Yes, I was just going to ask you. I was recommending at least three, and then somewhere between 3 and 5. Exactly. Yep. Right. Yeah, I always recommend a minimum of half your body weight, and that's the baseline, the very bottom. And so I want you to have that plus more. So if you are not consuming that, again, you're going to take that in a 5 to 10% increment, try to up it over the course of a week, every day a little bit more, and make sure by the end of that week you are getting, at least a minimum of half your body weight, if not closer to the 100 ounces that Tiffany mentioned. Yeah, right, right. Hmm. Yep. You're dehydrated. Yes. Mhm. And don't forget, if we're asking them to eat 25 plus grams of fiber and they are not consuming a minimum baseline of water, we're going to have a backup in our system. Okay. Fiber is great, but you need water to go along with it. You need the fluid to go along with it in order to move it through the system, right? Otherwise, it's going to stay there. Yep. Yeah. Right. 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 And you would do it. Exactly. You'll do it the same way if once you hit that threshold and realize and you kind of hit where you'd like to be, you start backing down in 5 or 10%. And again, if you think about it, if you're looking at a 15 to 1800 calorie diet, total consumption, you're looking at 150 calories, 100, not even sometimes, right? In that range. So you're not talking about some big deprivation. It's small, right? It's a very small, yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 It's a few grams of protein, right? It's simple. Yep. Yes. We have holidays all year long. For some people, summer is an entire holiday. There you go. Let's go. Right. Yeah. Get sucked up. Yep. Right. 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 Good. Well, making sure the protein is your star, right? Is your star source of room on your plate. It should take up probably a big chunk of your real estate on your plate, making sure you're getting it in. And again, most women I find that come into my program are grossly under eating a protein. And when they do choose a protein source, 9 times out of 10, it's a much fattier source, right? Which throws everything kind of off. Not that there's not a time and place for those, but making sure you eat some good quality lean proteins majority of the time. So do that. Um, and again, depending on where you're starting, will give you a bit of an idea on how much you should consume. But the average woman should be consuming at least a minimum of 100 grams of protein a day, especially someone that's trying to build muscle. Yes, straight across. Even a sedentary woman, right? There are studies out there taking, even average weight women, women that did not need to lose weight per se. They were what we were going to call skinny fat, right? And their body size per the scale was okay, but when they took a group of those women and increased their protein consumption, their body weight did not vary very much, but their body fat went down and their lean muscle mass increased by simply changing their consumption of lean protein. Did not change their workouts, did not change anything else. So that gives you an idea right there of where some of the baselines are for women. Mhm. Right. 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 Yeah, right. Minimum of 0.7 of that minimum. Mhm. And Tiffany, let's talk really quick. What is HIT, right? I mean, we said it's high intensity interval training, but most of us, when we're going to a gym, we go to take a HIT class. How long is that HIT class? Like 55 minutes, right? It's way too long. So we're saying, look, you're looking at like a 20 to 30 minute, around 25 to 30 minutes of work that's hard you cannot speak through, right? It's taking your threshold up where you are huffing and puffing. Now, could that be sprints on a treadmill? Yes. Could that be sprints on a bike where you're not getting the impact? Yes, it can. Could you be out walking and doing intervals that way? Yes, for some of us, that's going to give us HIT. Our program offers HIT in various different ways from kind of a calisthenic perspective. Um, there's a lot of ways you can get it, but it is very strategic where you're going to be working for a specific time on usually about 20 seconds to a 10-second rest, give or take, and repeating whatever the exercise is for the course of a warm up and a cool down for about 30 minutes. Mhm. Yep. Right. Right. Yep. 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 Right. And life's busy, right? Life's busy. Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, but keep it short and sweet. It doesn't need to be some long, drawn out session where you're like, oh, well, I don't have an hour to go to the gym, so I'm not going. That's not what we're asking you for. We can squeeze these small increments of those types of workouts in any day of your week. Mhm. Yep. Right. Right. Yep. Right. Yep. Right. 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 And we get into our program too. We talk about how to track that alcohol. So it isn't just by the like the nutritional label on a can of beer, right? We actually take the calories and actually track it differently because that nutritional label doesn't really make sense when you start to add the numbers up because they don't take alcohol. There is calories in per gram of alcohol that is not allocated on that nutritional label. So, okay. I think so. So enjoy the holidays, right? Go enjoy. Most people say it is kind of a feast time, right? It's a time that we find that our caloric intake increases. So with Tiffany, I thought, why not really explain to women and men why this is the perfect time to be lifting heavy? Perfect. We're not asking you to change anything else. We're just saying, hey, go lift heavy and see what January brings you then. See what the next month brings you when you go out of that feast season. Yep. Right. No. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. You'll be way ahead of the game come January, right? Because you're going to already have the muscles starting or there, and so being able to tweak the nutrition in January will make the world a difference. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, Tiffany. Good. Yep. Kimberly Anco on Instagram. Take care.